A few days after I moved to the Upper West Side, I was excited to see that NYC DOT had proposed a redesign of 72nd Street, which was right near my new apartment and goes right through Central Park. The redesign would cut down the street from a 4-lane throughway with vehicle parking on either side to a 2-lane road with a 2-way bike lane and curb extensions, while still keeping a parking lane on the other side. The bike lane would connect bike infrastructure along the Hudson River, which is the most heavily used bikeway in the country, with the existing but meager bike infrastructure along the East River. The redesign would also fill a huge crosstown gap in Manhattan's bicycle network, which, as of right now, mostly runs north to south. Of course, the plan drew instant backlash from anti-cycling groups, specifically those in the Upper West Side, who put up awful AI-generated posters and filed lawsuits. And as of a few days ago, a state judge froze the project for the time being, even after a Manhattan Community Board voted in favor of it not too long ago. The opposition claimed that the redesign would make streets unsafe for the community's disabled members, rendering them incapable of utilizing an important street. In reality, this couldn't be further from the truth. As the DOT outlined in their initial proposal, included in the plan is the creation of a concrete island to allow for easier bus access, and which also shortens the crossing distance, and of course, would also cut the number of car lanes in half. According to the DOT's research, protected bike lanes both increase bike ridership by up to 50%, while at the same time reducing the risk of incident by 34%. And that includes a 39% reduction in seniors who are killed or seriously injured. And it's not like that region of the West Side is safe to begin with. The DOT tallied 115 total injuries and 14 people who were killed or seriously injured on that part of 72nd and Riverside alone in the last 5 years. Along with claims about ableism, the anti-bike lane contingency also claimed that increased cycling infrastructure always brings about more congestion and suffering for businesses, even though time and time again it is proven that the opposite is true. A big talking point I see tossed around in these discussions is the perceived dangers surrounding e-bikes. And although I do personally use e-bikes quite a bit, I can understand the hesitance and unsafe feelings some may have around them. But the reality is that the number of e-bike collisions pales in comparison to the number of car collisions. The quantity of e-bike crashes in the city peaked at 4,100 in 2023 and was halved in 2025. And this year we're on track for a sub 1,000 figure. Compare that to the 96,000 yearly car collisions in the city, and the idea that replacing 2 car lanes with bike lanes will make the city more dangerous just doesn't hold up. And I will make the caveat that we don't have per capita numbers on these figures, but the data still supports the idea that adding protected bike lanes reduces risk across the board. And that's not to say that we can't do a better job making our street redesigns more accessible for people who are disabled. The purpose of all of these changes is to make our city more accessible for all. But the idea that these changes reduce safety just doesn't hold water. For whatever reason, even though the city has made great strides in the past few decades in terms of modernizing the urban landscape, every minute change is still met with resistance and aggression. Just last year, the city finally passed congestion pricing, a fee for vehicles entering the central business district of Manhattan. The program has raised over $500 million for the MTA so far, and in the first 6 months of the program alone, the number of vehicles in the area dropped by 11%, traffic delays were down by 25%, accidents dropped by 14%, and vehicle-related noise complaints dropped by a whopping 45%. And after a year, the air quality went back up. But still, there was a months-long stalemate between the MTA and the state governor, and there was tons of right-wing backlash before it finally went into effect. And to keep it local to the Upper West Side, there are tons of pro-pedestrian improvements that have been resounding successes. Probably most apparent is the removal of vehicle traffic from the Central Park Loop, which happened just 8 years ago. But if you've walked or biked around the park any time since then, it'll be hard to remember what it was like when cars were there. And not 2 avenues away from the park on the west side, the city has closed off a portion of Columbus Avenue to cars every Sunday during the summer as part of its Open Streets program. All that's to say that it's not like the people that actually live in the neighborhood don't appreciate these types of changes. They create healthier, more vibrant streets that are safer, quieter, and cleaner. So along with those, as well as the huge improvements and promises made by Mamdani's office, it does seem that the city is moving in the right direction, even if the current federal government is trying to politicize it. But for whatever reason, there is still a contingency of people that feels the need to clog up the gears of progress whenever change is imminent. So while more improvements are on the horizon, they may be farther away than they appear.